How to brew homemade kombucha during any season. That's the question. Here's the answer. Okay, so seasons change, so kombucha brewing has to change, right? Usually, it makes sense. When the winter comes, the temperature is lower. All right. Now, just so you guys know, if you don't know already, kombucha likes to be fermented in a temperature anywhere from 72 degrees Fahrenheit to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Some people could go up, would say as high as 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I found, even though the research says 85 degrees is great, I found that if it's too high, it will ferment too fast, and what happens is that acetic, right, the acetic acid level gets introduced, the levels get too high that it turns into that vinegary taste, not that chilled out apple cidery, still with the bite, but not the vinegar taste. So a general rule of thumb is the lower the temperature, the longer it takes to ferment, and the more mellowed the flavor will be. I like the bite of kombucha, so for me, a brewing temperature of about 75, 78 degrees works well, and a brewing time really varies. Why? Well, because there's other factors. It's insane. I mean, this is a living thing we're talking about. So not only do this, when the seasons change, the temperature changes, but other things change as well. Primarily the relationship between the yeast and bacteria. You will find that during the colder months, yeasts can survive, no problem, but the bacteria might be a little lower. So we've done other videos on how to balance the yeast and bacteria. So if your bacteria is low, you want to raise your bacteria. There are ways and techniques to do it. I encourage you to check out our other resources on how to do that. A good rule of thumb, though, is during the colder months, just know that it might take a little longer to get that fermentation to, the pH level to drop, and you might need to incorporate a heating source, okay? We have our own personal kombucha heating mats that we recommend during the colder months, and we also show you, again, something that we like to do is not just provide a product, but provide resources on how to use that product the best way possible. So we also have like some free videos and goodies on how to really make those heating mats work for you. Something that you should not do, though, is think, well, if kombucha needs to be warm during the winter, let me put it in my oven. And I know it sounds crazy, but it didn't sound crazy when I listened. When I first started brewing, that actually would make sense to me, right? When something warm, something dark, put it in the oven. Oven doesn't work for two reasons. The obvious reason would be kombucha does not like smoke and things like that. So no smoking cigarettes around a kombucha, and in your oven, even if you're cleaning it every day, it's probably a little gross in there. Also doesn't like to be moved around all the time, which means unless you're only microwaving your food or eating takeout, you're gonna have to continuously bring your brew out of your oven. But the third reason, which I've not seen online yet, is that the pilot light in your oven, which counterintuitive because you would think, well, the pilot light would add warmth to my culture, is actually burning off oxygen, right? So your oven is, and it's usually an oven closed, right? So what that oven's doing is kind of suffocating your kombucha during the aerobic process of the fermentation. So during the winter months, really the best solution is a heating mat. It's the most cost effective by far because it's a lot easier to warm up your kombucha brewer than your entire apartment or house or castle, wherever you choose to reside. Another quick tip would be to, wherever you have your brewer, your kombucha vessel, is to raise it somewhere. Maybe people go back and forth of refrigerator because the refrigerator vibrates. I found that as long as your culture is already thick enough, it's fine to put on top of your fridge. Again, experiment. Another great place is like a dresser or a closet that's not completely closed, right? So it still has that air ventilation. Why? Well, heat, and this is just physics. I'm not like this crazy wizard or anything. But that would be cool if I was a crazy wizard. Heat rises, right? So if you have your kombucha in an elevated space in your home, the temperature, and test this yourself. Test your temperature in like a higher part of your house and test it lower. Heat rises, so naturally your kombucha will be warmer in an elevated area. Hopefully that answers your question, how to brew homemade kombucha during any season. To get even more free kombucha videos to take your kombucha brewing to the next level, check out GetKombucha.com/free.